So this is just me freestyling. I don't have any script. I don't have any kind of guidelines at this point. But it's just some shit that needs to be said on a greater conscious level for the community, for the world, hell. At some point, we got boundaries fucked up as women, especially as black women, but as women as a whole, not just any race or color. We got respect fucked up. We got boundaries fucked up. And then we shun each other for having them. Like, what the fuck? How can you shun someone else for having boundaries and saying, enough is enough? This isn't for me. This doesn't work for me. Because you haven't found that same resolve within yourself. You'd rather sit here and argue. You'd rather sit here and be in low vibrational, be miserable, and keep all the other people around you miserable. Like, who does that? That's some fuck the conscious movement, fuck the new age movement, the indigo baby movement, all of that bullshit. Fuck all of that. Yeah, it's real, whatever. But outside of that, on a deep human perspective level, why do we feel that our opinions, that the actions we would take are supposed to be um followed by other people when they haven't made that resolve within themselves? And then because they haven't made that resolve within themselves, they'll stop you from keeping your resolve. They'll shun you for keeping your resolve, for keeping your boundaries and knowing where your limits are. I have never in my life seen so much hate between women than when I moved here to Minnesota. Been here 5 years. And it's different here. I'm coming from big city living. This ain't no big city. So, yeah, that part. But at some point, you got to put a stop to some shit. And I know everybody got to get there in their own time. But even when you're not there yet, what gives you the right to say and quantify how much someone can and can't take? What gives you the right to say, well, just because you're not done doesn't mean I'm not done? That's that person's choice. In order to have a friendship, a relationship, a business partnership, two people have to be seen and make an agreement. If there's no agreement between those two people, then there's no relationship, there's no business, there's no partnership. So if one person's saying, all right, I've had my limit, I can no longer take it, how dare you sit there and say, oh, no, you're going to take some more because I still care about this and I still want this to work out. That's great. Not undoing your feelings and your wants and your desires. But it's a mutual benefit. It's a shared idea. It's a shared experience. And if one person is not willing to share that anymore, how dare you deplete them? How dare you insult them? How dare you tell them that what they feeling or that they don't care as much or they're not caring as deeply or, you know, just straight insult them, insult their intelligence, insult their adulthood, insult what they got on. People really do go down to physical insults when they run out of other shit off of boundaries. What I noticed, especially, and this is anywhere, but especially in this fucking state, boundaries don't exist. Women, especially women who are dating right now, a lot of them don't have boundaries. Or if they have them, they don't activate them. What's the point in having a boundary saying, I won't put up with this, I don't like this, this is not something I'm in agreement with? And then when it actually comes into your realm physically, then you kind of hush down, you be quiet. Or if you do blow up, you blow up for that second, but then you want it still. It's we have our own ways of contradicting ourselves as human beings on a regular basis. We all do. But when someone puts their foot down and says, no, this is my line, this is my final, this is where I can't go past, what gives anyone else the right to combat that? What makes you think that we can have a conversation about me not sticking to my boundaries? What makes you think we can work anything out when my boundaries aren't being respected? And then have the audacity to get mad at me, curse me out, call me names, say I'm a horrible person, say I'm heartless, because I'm willing to love myself first. I'm always going to be willing to love myself first. And the only exception to that comes with children while they are children, because once they become an adult, no, they will still be of importance, no less of importance. And I would still put my child first. But at some point when they become of age and they can do for themselves, no, that child no longer comes first before me. I may prioritize them still, surely, but only in their childhood, in their infancy, in their adolescence would they be put before their needs before mine. After they're able to do those things for themselves, it no longer becomes above me. And it's the same thing in a relationship. It's the same thing with religion. How can you worship a God and say you love God and you trust God when you don't love and trust yourself? Everything you can't give from emptiness. You can't give out of an empty cup. So if it's a mind fuck to sit here and say, well, I have boundaries, but then not respect other people's boundaries. It's a mind fuck to demand certain actions out of people and then not be willing to give anything back. And then be upset when someone enforces the boundary. Someone says, hey, here's a boundary. I'm going to enforce this now because this and that and the third, I feel this, I see this, I don't like this. And your response to it is to criticize that person, tear that person down. What makes you so righteous? What makes your life so just? Have you sinned? Have you had problems in your life, in your relationships? Because we all do. There's no such thing as a person who don't have any problems. They may not have any arguments, but they got some problems. The problems may not be seen outwardly. The problems may not be big problems, but they're still problems that you got to work through. And it takes two to work through them. Again, relationship, partnership, friendship, siblings, parents, anything, any kind of form of relationship is supposed to be mutually beneficial at some point. And when I say mutually beneficial, I don't mean equal. I mean, you had that discussion even with a parent and a child. It's a mutual benefit because the parent gets to give that child the benefit and the knowledge and the strength to grow the things that they need to grow and become righteous within themselves, become full, successful beings for themselves. And the parent gets the mutual benefit later to say, hey, I raised a great child. I raised a great human being. And there's little gratifications and little awards on the way. Sure, you get to hit the milestones and we all party. You got the birthdays and the graduations. You got the first steps and the first falls, the first heartache. Good and bad. It's not equal, but it's mutually benefiting. In a relationship, in a successful relationship, one where when you do run into a problem, you can talk it out, you can discuss it. Some people, that looks like counseling for some people, but they truly hear each other. They can talk to each other, they can come to each other, and they can work it out. It becomes a mutual benefit when they're able to work it out, work through it, work past it. It becomes, and in order to get to that point where you can work it out and it becomes mutually benefiting, you have to be respectful. You got to have a backbone of your own. You got to have love for yourself. You got to have respect and trust in yourself, because without all of those things for yourself, how the hell do you think it's going to work with anyone else? And for anybody that wants to combat that statement, tell me your relationship. Tell me how successful your relationship. Tell me how many arguments you have. Tell me how many times you complain about your spouse or your partner, your business partner, your boyfriend, whatever. How many times do you go outside of him or her to complain? How many times do you argue with them? How many times do you have a disagreement? How many times do you walk around on silent mode because you got attitude or he got attitude or she got attitude, whatever? Not even putting a gender to it, because it's above gender. It's about humanality. It's about the human decency and the respect. If I got respect for me and what I'm willing to accept and not accept, I then thus can go into this world and have respect for other people and what they will and will not accept. And sometimes what they will and will not accept does hit me wrong. But that don't mean I got an opinion, or I gotta belittle that person or down that person or tell that person how wrong they are because I don't agree, because it hits a sore spot for me. Guess what? When your boundary hits one of my boundaries, that's one place we ain't going, is it? And I don't mean give up, but it's like, where's the if you can't truly love nobody, the boundary starts with self. If you don't truly love yourself, you can't build a relationship with anyone else that would mean much, simply because you can't give anything. You don't trust, you don't love yourself, which means you're willing to accept things that, even though you might feel like they're not right, you might see that they're not right, you might know that it hurts, it hits different, but you don't have the self-care and the reinforcement within yourself to do something about it. Whether that's having a conversation, whether that's taking a breather for yourself, whether that's leaving the situation alone, you know? But you have the audacity to speak on other people's issues when you won't even speak on your own. What makes you so righteous? I'm not a devout Christian. I'm not a devout anything. I don't really truly believe in religion. I was raised religiously. I have my belief in my superior, in my God, but I'm not religious by any means. But what gives you the right? What gives you the right to dictate what any other person does, to control what any other person does? As far as how they care for themselves, as far as what they say they can and can't do, can and can't take, will and will not accept. My boundary was simply respect. To get respect. And this is going out into the world at large, to go to the grocery store. If you give respect, you get respect. If you get respect, you give respect. When you receive disrespect, what did you give? When you give disrespect, what do you get? And for those who are holier than thou and says, well, I turned thus other cheek and bullshit of that, fine. But you still go home like, damn, that was ignorant. Damn, that was bogus. But you're the person I'm talking to, because you're the person that we should be modeling after, right? You'll say that's fucked up because somebody stood on their own 2 feet. Someone says, I have this volition within myself. I have this knowledge, this knowing, this love, this care for myself to say, this is not for me. I don't like this. I'm not willing to accept this. I am willing to do this. I will work for this. I can't tell any person to leave their spouse, their husband, their partnership, their business relationship because they're unhappy. That's the volition you're supposed to know within yourself. Before you go in there, you should know your boundaries. You should know what you're willing to and willing not to take. And if you didn't go in there with those, you should find them fast. Because without boundaries, that means you're willing to accept anything. And with no boundaries, when you're done accepting anything and you're like, oh, I've had enough, then the other person's looking at you confused because they don't know what the fuck happened. You ain't never had these boundaries before. We've been doing this before. But if that person cares about you on a human level, not love, not romantic, not anything, on a human level, if that person cares anything about your humanity, your well-being, they would say, okay, I've hit a nerve, I struck a nerve, I hit a boundary, they don't like that. Can we get past it? Can we work past it? Is this something that I can do different? Is it something we can come on together to figure out how to combat it, how to overcome it without it hitting that boundary again, without it being a negative thing? Those are people who care. Those are people who have your best interest at heart. And they may be shitty people, but they got that respect. People see me as being rude. People see me as being harsh. I'm not harsh when I'm making sure that myself is cared for first. And I don't mean I'm prioritizing only me and only my needs, not by any means. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is when those times come where I have to prioritize myself, when I'm energetically depleted, when I'm mentally exhausted, when I'm physically exhausted, when I've hit a point where I can't accept something, when someone's disrespecting me and I can't take it anymore, when something's happening in my realm around me that's too much for me, good or bad. Hell, somebody laughing too much could be, somebody crying too much could be too much. Somebody laughing too much could be too much. Somebody, talking too much could be too much at that moment. Where is your care for self? That's my question for humanity. How dare we go and make all these changes and all these implementations to tell others how to do their daily life activities with no care for self? You're depleted. You get off the camera after giving me an uplifting speech. The preacher gets off the pulpit after giving a sermon. The teacher, work day is over. It's 3:00. Class is dismissed. What do you do for yourself? What do you do to help yourself? What do you do to keep yourself sane? That's a boundary. That means that I've gotten to this point and I understand that something needs to change or something needs to happen. I can't continue down that point. I need to take a rest before I continue down that point. I need to not continue down that point, whatever the case. Where is your humanly love for yourself? I guess in my circumstance, I'm unique because I never had to build up myself. Let me put it this way. No one ever tore down my self-respect and my boundaries to a point where I didn't have them. I was raised very well, and I was raised in some shit, but I was raised very well. My mother made sure that we were equipped. We knew how to respect other people's boundaries while also upholding our own and understanding that just because someone has a boundary doesn't exclude them. It doesn't. It's not a cause for demeaning them because we're not in alignment in that point. Again, it was no structure to this. This was just me speaking because I've had and seen so much that it's just got to be said at some point. You could do all the spiritual renovations, turn your house into plant sanctuary, go completely green, go the minimalist way of life, find a husband, find a partner, leave a husband, leave a partner, any of that. Without self-respect, what does any of it mean? Without self-love, what does any of it mean? Without the boundary to say, I've had enough or this is too much. Or did I just need a break? Sometimes it's not a quit situation. Sometimes you just need a break. A few minutes, a few hours, a few days. Hell, right now I need a few weeks to break from my goddamn job. you know. But for real though, where is it at? I know there's plenty of people out here that have that same wavelength to me. As maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. And yet my day-to-day life, I see most people function. I meet and see a lot of people over the phone, in person, via Skype, via chat, all of it. On social media, hearing other people's opinions. And it's like a trend. It's a trend to say my need, my will over everything else. But that's not boundaries. That's not self-respect. That's not love. Boundaries is saying, all right, it's time for me to do something different for myself. But you're good. Go for you. Do you. All peace and love. Or hell and brimstone, whatever you like, But for real though, people see boundaries as limitations. I see them as my keys to success, because without my boundaries, without me being able to say, hey, I feel, I am, then what am I? If I can't put boundaries up, if I can't, half the time my boundaries aren't even up. I just made you aware of them, and that causes a problem. You know, the interview I just had today for a job, like, it was just fucking awesome. Because everything we talked about, as far as what I was looking for in the job, what kind of company I was looking for, what type of supervisory, you know, uh, um, supervisory dictation I'm looking for, and for it to be receptive. I've never had a job interview and they were like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's awesome. It's just like, oh, okay. Because I'm going to let you know my boundaries off the bat. Because if you're not willing to respect my boundaries, I have no business working for you on a relationship level. If we're together and you expect me to respect your boundaries, to make sure that you're okay, why am I not giving the mutual benefit? If I have a boundary, why come we can't either agree to disagree? Why come we can't see if we can work it out together? Or just, say, hey, this just ain't gonna work out in that case. This is a hard no. It's a hard I don't wanna. It's a hard I can't. It's a hard just enough is enough, hell. But to actually go so far to shun people, to argue with people, to tear them down off of what they need to do for themselves, that's a deeper issue. That's a deeper issue of self-love and self-respect, of knowing yourself. Because when you know yourself, even when someone tells you no or the candidate don't, tell you they don't want to work on it, if you love yourself, you can look at it and say, all right, that's how you feel, and I respect that. I may not understand it, I may not like it, I may not agree with it, but that's how you feel. And I respect you as a person, and I respect how you feel. Again, I never say I agree with how you feel. Never say I liked how you feel. Never say I'm happy that you feel that way or sad that you feel that way. None of that. But I hear you. And I respect that you have respect for yourself. I respect that you have the knowledge of yourself. And because I have knowledge of myself, I can, all right, let's see what we can do about that. Let's see what we can do to fix that. Let's see if it's even fixable. When you go for it today, just observe your surroundings. Observe how people talk to each other. You're nothing that you even have to necessarily be a part of yourself. Observe how people really do judge, really do inflict their will, if you will, on others. Just look, just watch, just observe. Even in your own conversation, just observe. And then tell me, how many people do you see talking down to or about someone, about their boundaries, about what they feel is okay for them? I do in my life what makes me happy. I do in my life what makes me feel proud of me. And I do what I need in my life to keep me sustained. And when I find someone who I can do that with, it's a wonderful time. Friendships, family members, relationships, partnerships, business relationships. It's all good. And you know why it's all good? Because I was all good with me first. And for the people that I do encounter, and it's not all good, for the people that I do encounter that push back on my boundaries or hit those nerves, I still smile at you. I still tell you it's okay. Because I still see your humanity. Whatever's going on, even if ain't nothing going on, you just the bitch in real life. I still respect your humanity and your ability to be a bitch. That's your boundary. That don't mean I gotta fucking deal with it. That's yours, not mine. Only thing I gotta worry about, only thing I got control of is this body. And yeah, sometimes there's moments of anxiety and anxiousness. There's moments of sadness because of shit you see outside of yourself, the shit you don't got control over. But I don't let that shit dictate my life. I don't let nobody else's boundaries dictate my life. We can work on it. We can see if we can work on it. Or we can say, hey, that's just something we not seeing eye to eye on. Then I'm done rambling. That's it. Deuce buckets.